excuse me, as a preface to the talk, I wanted to mention one thing that was at the state convention, was all the way to the president, was encouragement to get new members and retain old members, is that we need a lot more volunteer registrars, mentors in all the chapters. As Jerry's finding out, as he has found out for 3 years, there's a lot of work as a registrar. And what they're looking for is the top line signer as a volunteer and also to become a mentor. So once the person gets in, and which you will help answer questions and any paperwork and so forth, working with Jerry, then they want you to mentor them so they keep paying their dues and start participating in the local chapters, things, color guard, etc. Handing out these ROTC awards, so forth. So that was the message throughout the whole thing, which has nothing to do with my talk, which is called the First Salute. And let me give you some background on the First Salute. 3 of my 6 patriots were Dutch, so I'm a little fond of the Dutch, even though they're hard-headed. New Amsterdam was officially formed in 1624 by the Dutch. The Dutch and the English had a tradition of fighting all the time. Family spats, but sometimes a little more than that. They were pretty angry when the British invaded and took New Amsterdam in 1664 while they had a signed peace agreement. So that will tend to anger you. One of the major contentious areas was the merchant navies. The merchant navies, the Dutch was the biggest in the world. Spain and France and England devoted more time on warships. So one of the reasons the Brits invaded New Amsterdam was to try to take the fur trade away from the Dutch. Well, the Dutch, being traders, just moved up the Hudson River towards Albany, and the British never were successful in stealing the fur trade. The Continental Navy was formed in 1775. Prior to that, all of the naval ships were state ships and flew state flags as their flag for the state. John Adams was a big proponent in Continental Congress to having a navy of the for the United States, or whatever they called it in those days. And the major intent of starting a U.S. Navy was to intercept the supplies, munitions, and so forth that were coming from different countries to the British, food, munitions, and that was the main reason to form a navy. During this period, the Dutch ships continued to ignore British warnings as they sailed to the Caribbean, dropping off munitions and then loading them onto smaller ships that sailed them up, and all along the east coast of the U.S. They unloaded ammunition and munitions. A lot of it came from France, but in general, it was a pretty risky affair. The British caught you with any of these weapons, you were immediately, executed, and your ship sunk. So the French, rightfully so, get a lot of credit for arming The most money made during that time was by the Dutch taking the risk of picking it up in France and delivering it to, say, Savannah, Georgia. And the Dutch have always been famous for being merchantmen. The ensign was and still is the lowest officer rank in the U.S. Navy. The ensign was also the flag flown off the aft of shipping that's out in international waters. If you didn't have colors on the aft of your ship, they assumed you were a pirate. So in October, November of 1775, Continental Congress ordered the making of an ensign for their 4 ships that they ordered, warships, to be built, converted merchant ships to warships. And they commissioned a Margaret Manny, remember that name, not as famous as Betsy Ross, but Margaret Manny, and she made the first 4 ensigns that were flown so they could go out into the Atlantic and not be considered pirates. I have as a handout today the copy of that flag called the Grand Union. The design of the flag is a little less clear than Washington's stars and bars, but it has 13 stripes for the colonies. But in the canton, which is where our stars are today, it has the British Union Jack. And the reason for this is it was still in Continental Congress that there was quite a few people who wanted to become a Commonwealth of England, like Canada and Australia are today, and not split totally. So as a compromise in international waters, they had the American flag, American colonies flag, and the British Union Jack. And December 3rd, 1775, the flag was hoisted on the gunship Alfred by John Paul Jones. This flag was known as the Grand Union and was the national flag until replaced by the Stars and Stripes with the Flag Act of 1777. Obviously, Betsy Ross had a better publicity department than Margaret Manny. Okay, so that's the background to my talk. Fortunately, my talk is shorter than the background. The first salute, November 16th, 1776. Okay, we know the colonies and the Dutch had strong relationships. We know that the British and Dutch did not get along. We know that a continental navy with an ensign called the Grand Union, sewn by Margaret Manny. The Dutch island in the Leewards group was called Sint Eustatius and was governed by Johannes den Graaf. And the American emissary there was a Mr. Van Bibber. You didn't recognize it. I have one of my patriots is Van Bibber, but not this guy. In fall of 1776, the Continental Congress ordered Admiral Robinson, commander of the Andrew Doria, to sail to Sint Eustatius to present Mr. Van Bibber a copy of the Declaration of Independence, but also to purchase munitions. When they sailed into the harbor, the Andrew Doria gave a 13-gun salute to the Fort Orange, the Dutch fort on Sint Eustatius. At the urging of the governor, Den Graaf, the fort followed with a roar of 11 cannons on Sint Eustatius, as was the custom you gave back 2 less than you were saluted. In 1939, FDR presented a plaque at Fort Orange, Sint Eustatius, that reads, "In commemoration to the salute to the flag of the United States, fired in this fort November 16, 1776, by order of Johannes de Graaf, governor of Sint Eustatius, in reply to the national gun salute fired by the United States brig of war Andrew Doria under Captain Isaiah Robinson of the Continental Navy. Here the sovereign states of the United States was first formally acknowledged to a national vessel by a foreign official, and this is presented by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States." So it was the first salute that recognized the United States as an independent country. It was the first salute to the U.S. national flag sewn by Margaret Manny. And they also mentioned they were delivering the Declaration of Independence. Now, I copied this out of this last paragraph out of Wikipedia, and it had a bright red notice, "We need more proof of this," but since this is my talk, I'll just ignore that, and the history teacher's gone, so she can't call me on it. A ship went to Holland right after the Declaration of Independence was signed to present the Declaration of Independence to the leaders of the Dutch colony, the Dutch state, not colony. On the way to Holland, the ship was captured by British. As it was the one in those days, they went through all the captain's papers and came across the copy of the Declaration of Independence. It was wrapped in documents that the British believed to be a strange cipher. In reality, the documents were written in Yiddish to the Jewish merchants in Holland. Any questions? I'll ask my compatriots back there if they can hand out a flag to everybody. Questions?